Hi, my name is Darcy Smith. I'm a voice director and coach and creator of vocal combat technique, a technique that helps actors go to vocal extremes in a healthy way. So today we're going to talk about directing those kinds of sessions, those vocal extreme sessions, and how we can take care of your actors and get the best performances out of them at the same time. So, as I was saying, vocal extreme sessions, they can include anything from military barks and call outs to creatures, whatever it might be. My name again is Darcy Smith. I've got a BFA and MFA degree in theater acting and for film and voiceover. I'm also a professor of voice at the University of Cincinnati. I created and tested vocal combat technique. It's a technique that is proven to help actors go to vocal extremes. It's been proven in two studies with the otolaryngology department here at UC and been published in the Journal of Voice, just showing that its efficacy is proven. And then I'm also a voice and dialect coach and director for Ubisoft, 343 Industries, Ninja Theory, Digital Extremes, and a bunch of other games as I have done over the last, say, 6 to 8 years. I've presented about vocal health for SAG, Equity, ACTRA, and also for the U.S. Navy in San Diego, helping out their drill instructors. So when we talk about working with vocal extremes, just what we're going to cover today. So we're going to talk about why vocal health is important. We're going to talk about how you can improve your casting for extreme VO, and then planning your recording sessions so that they're in the most effective way. How we can write those sessions so that when you're coaching and directing them, they're more effective already from just the layout of what you've done, and then giving you some directing tips about what you should do in those sessions. So when we say what are vocal extremes, right? Vocal extremes can be all kinds of different things. It can be what some people call barks or battle chatter. It could be creature sounds. It could be efforts and impacts, right? It could be screaming. It could be grunts, but it can also be extremes of laughing or crying. And so we know that there's an impact on voice, right? In these kinds of sessions, depending on what happens and how long it goes on. I was happy to help with the actress survey. This is the Union of Actors in Canada. And 80% of them reported that their voiceover sessions included vocally extreme work, 80% of the sessions. Close to 40% of them reported that the work resulted in vocal fatigue or stress, and 30% of them reported that the vocal stress compromised their ability to audition or work on another project. So there definitely is proof that, a lot of video game sessions have some pretty vocal extreme stuff. So what does vocal fatigue sound like? That's the first thing that we want to just begin to notice. What does it sound like? What's happening to your actor as they're going through the session? You're going to hear some of these things. You're going to hear a lack of control, change in pitch, change in vocal quality, and at its worst, loss of voice, right? If they've lost their voice completely. But something that you might not know about is the increased recovery time, right? So you've sent them out of the session and they're not able to really use their voice in the way that they need to have complete control of their voice again. Many people say for up to 48 hours. Okay, but who cares? So what is the result of vocal fatigue or injury? Well, if they've got a wrecked voice, they have no voice. And so if it happens during a session, you're going to have to reschedule. Or if it's taking them time to recover, you're going to have additional sessions. This is going to cost more money, studio costs, actor costs, crew costs. It's going to impact on your time scales. It's going to cause stress. And then all of a sudden, you find that your studio, your devs have a bad reputation amongst actors, right? They talk to each other and they're like, watch out for that particular director or watch out for that particular studio. And you don't want to get that kind of reputation. So, how do we protect actors' voices and avoid these inflating budgets and timescales, but still get the really great extreme voice performances that we want, right? Well, here's the first thing we do, and I want you to begin to think about this holistically, right? So, we start at the beginning, which is casting with care. Number one, let the actor know what's going on. What do you expect to happen as much as possible in the session? Let them know how much, sort of vocal combat is going to occur inside the session. Make sure that they know that that's what's going to happen. Gives the chance for the actor to prepare for it, but also decide maybe they don't want to do that kind of work. I've been in sessions where, the actor realizes like, oh, you want me to scream, and it's like, yeah, I need you to scream like you're set on fire. It needs to sound realistic. And so just giving as much clues, right, in that casting brief about efforts, impacts, battle chatter, what's going to happen, as much as possible, what they can expect. When you audition, ask for some of those sounds. Ask for them to perform some of those things because that gives you some data, right? It's going to let you know, oh, okay, this person knows what they're doing when it comes to those kinds of efforts, impacts, screaming, shouts, whatever it might be that you need, or creature sounds, so that you know, oh, I'm hiring not just the most interesting character, actor, and voice, that I'm casting someone who knows what they're doing, has some idea how to perform those sounds, and knows what they're getting into. If you're hiring somebody new who's never done that kind of work, provide them with some kind of coaching support. Many devs will reach out to me and say, hey, can you coach this actor for 1 or 2 hours before the session? And the session goes much more smoothly because all of a sudden that actor knows how to take care of their voice, achieve those kinds of sounds in a healthy way. And then just watch out for the injured voice. Lots of times, the most interesting voice is interesting because I'm good for lack of a better word, it's abnormal, right? There's something different about the voice. They've got a polyp, they've got a node, there's something else going on with the folds, and that's what's creating that interesting sound. Not to say that you shouldn't cast them, but you really want to cast with care and be aware of what you're getting into and let them know what they're getting into as well. So here's a matrix that I find is really helpful, right? Because you're going to ask actors to go to a variety of different kinds of things. You want to think about the projection, the intensity, or perhaps the emotion of what it is that you're asking them to do. Can they perform that action in a wide variety of scenarios that you need them to perform in? So, depending on your game, do you need them to whisper, to just be spoken, to call, to shout? Is it all whispered? Is it all shouted? Like, what is it that you're asking them to do? And then with that matrix, can they do that but also be calm, stressed, intense, or panicked? And so listening, can they do that shouted sound but calm? Can they do it shouted but panicked? Can they whisper it but be panicked, etc.? Just to give them a little bit of a variety to see if they have the vocal flexibility and power to do what you need them to do. So, for example, in a casting brief, you might do the following. You might say, provide us with 3 recorded efforts, 3 light attacks, as though you were swinging a sword. 3 medium attacks, as though you were swinging a two-handed sword or a battle axe. And then 3 heavy attacks, as though you were, I don't know, sending a particular blast at somebody, uh, a killing blast at somebody. Similarly, for the attacks, same thing. What does it sound like to get 3 light attacks? Impacts, 3 medium impacts, and 3 heavy impacts. Those as though parts are really interesting and helpful because they give the actor some context about what you're looking for. So now when it comes time to write for the session, you want to write with the session in mind, the session that you're going to be recording for. So many, many times as a director, I get exclamation marks on the script. And so my question is always like, is that exclamation mark about emotion, or is it about projection, or is it both? And it can be hard to tell just by looking at it. So as much as exclamation marks can give you some clues, they can also be misdirects. So you want to just give a little bit more information maybe around those kinds of lines. Think about projection, power, or emotion. And then provide a scale or some kind of sample is so helpful to the actor, especially ahead of time, or the voice director as it might be. So if I know what it is, the projection level I'm looking for, and what's the scale, so projection level of 1 to maybe 5 or 1 to 3, different companies who just use different kinds of scales, and having some kind of sample so that we get a sense of like, okay, that's what you mean by projected, or that's what you mean by shouted. Take time to organize in your writing. What is a need? We must capture these lines. We must get these, and these are extra if we have time or if we're able to. That's going to really help your voice director know what do I need to prioritize and what do I make sure that we get clean and in the can, so to speak, and then what can be extra and we can work on later on. Structure your writing. You want to start with lighter sounds and then move to the more intense. I'll talk more about this a little bit later. I think pretty much everybody knows this now, but you just want to get a better sense of what is light and what is intense. And sometimes what people think is light is actually more intense for some people. And then if you have animation, is there time length to the sound or to what's happening? Provide that animation so that the actor and the voice director can match those two things together. Okay, so when you're writing with the session in mind, right? So think instead of just starting from easy and then loading all the intense stuff at the end. Because what I've seen sometimes also happen as a coach is that sometimes the voice director will front load all the easy stuff for the first hour. And then for the next hour, we've got all intense, 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 intense work. So it's actually better to move around a little bit. Start with whispered normal, whispered stressed, spoken normal, spoken stressed, projected normal, projected stressed. Repeat that a few times and then take a break. And so moving around to different parts of the voice will actually help the voice to recover, but also isn't asking the voice to be in the same stressed position over and over and over again. So you want to plan your recording session, right? So the director has the script. Obviously, give the director as much time as possible with the script so they can prepare it, so they can organize it in the way that they need to. If they have questions, they're prepared with those questions as they come up. So yeah, in general, you want to put the extreme stuff at the end, as I was just saying. Don't put the screaming at the start. You want to spread it out through the session. And then you want to make sure if the session has all extreme VO, make sure that you've got regular breaks as needed. And you want to work and listen to the actor's limits at all times. Of course, you want to follow union rules and support your actors. Okay, so let's talk about breaks because actors, they want to please their clients. They want to please the director. So sometimes they won't ask for breaks even if they need it. And so the result can be that they burn out quickly and then the session is over. There's inconsistent vocal qualities, right? It's inconsistent with the character and we can't use it. We have to go back and have another session. And so it's important that sometimes the director say, "Hey, we're just going to take a break because it's time to take a break," as opposed to making the actor feel like they're the one who's taking the break. So here's some ways to judge if you're the voice director that the actor is vocally burnt out or tired. And some of these can be voice cues, but some of them aren't. For example, if the actor starts to delay between takes, if they start to have some abnormal chatter between takes, like that can be a stalling technique that they're using. Nowadays, we can't always see the actor, but hopefully you can. You'll see some nonverbal cues. You'll see them either swallowing a lot or taking lots of water, or maybe reaching for their throat. So those listen and look for those nonverbal cues. Absolutely, though, coughing, excessive throat clearing, that's a first sign that they're starting to burn out. And then those signs that I talked about at the very beginning of the session, things like voice change, pitch change, losing their voice cutting in and out, those are big clues that you might have gone actually too far and you want to take a break. So you want to make sure that you prep your engineers right before this recording session as well. So what are the equipment requirements? Do we need more than one mic? Do we need different mics, different preamps, etc.? So just make sure that they know what they're doing if they haven't worked in vocally extreme kinds of sessions ahead of time, right? Think about what are you doing with the audio, right? If it has more processing, if you're doing some more creature sounds with more processing, actually sometimes having a less extreme performance is required because we're going to put some processing on it. Make sure you give scripts ahead of time, give actors the mental and physical time to prepare. Because nobody wants a surprise torture scene, right? All of a sudden, like, what? Oh, I need to be tortured right now, and I wasn't in for that. So, as much as possible, give the scripts out ahead of time. All right, so some in-session tips. Hydration. Hydration is important. It's been proven in a number of studies, especially with vocal extremes, that hydration does help with vocal extremes. Hydration includes not just the outer layer of the folds, but also the systemic hydration of the folds. That means like inside your folds. And so from the time that you drink, it takes time to go through your entire body to the time it reaches your folds. So just keep that in mind. If you have a 4-hour session, you want to keep your actor hydrated all through that session. Check in with your actor. And there's a different way that you could do this is the way that I do this with my actor, is I don't just say, how's it going or how's your voice feeling? I ask them for a vocal load number at the very beginning. What's their sort of vocal status? On a 0 to 10 scale, 10 being like you're feeling perfect, 0 being like not feeling so great. So 10 means that they're really ready to go in. So at the beginning of the session, they say, I'm feeling like a 7 or an 8. Great. We continue through the session. I check in maybe 30 minutes later. How are you feeling now? What number would you give yourself? It reduces the emotional impact of it. It allows them to really think about what status am I at right now? Now, from that, you might need to reduce the load, right? As I'm directing sometimes and I'm listening to where the actor is at, I'm like, okay, I was going to move to this screaming now, but I'm going to actually back off a little bit. We're going to do some low key stuff, then come back for that screaming. Make sure that you're giving your actor some really clear targets. What are the sounds that you want them to perform? How long is it? How loud does it need to be? How extreme does it need to be? Getting clear about what the direction of that sound is ahead of time, giving them that preemptive cue will help and save the number of takes that you do, saving you time, but also saving the actor's voice. And then just getting clear about, is this an impact or an effort, right? In general, I call impacts anything that occurs to your body that's outside of your character's control, right? It might be a surprise, being shot, being hit, landing on the ground. Generally, those go from loud to quiet, right? So, ah! Versus an effort where we go from quiet to loud, right? Swinging a sword or whatever it might be. So just getting clear about what the sound is, what's the dynamic of that sound, coaching your actor to make those sounds. So some in-session tips, right? What are you working with? Are you working with a voice actor, or have they done mostly maybe audiobooks? So they'll be probably quite good at the, intimate kind of work, but they're going to need a little bit of help and a little bit of coaching to get a little bit more projected. Are you working with a film actor? Do they understand efforts? Do they understand those impacts? Are they going to be sort of, getting used to what it's like to act in a booth? So they're going to need a little bit of coaching. Theater actors as well, really good at projecting, but not always as good at finding vocal extremes. Metal singers, similarly, really excited to give you lots of intense sounds, but you might actually need to pull them back sometimes or coach them on the acting process of what's happening at that moment. They've got a lot of techniques in terms of how to go to extremes, but not necessarily how to create a character that's believable. And then working with the injured voice. How do you work with the injured voice that's super interesting? Help them guide them through to find those sounds that you need them to do, but also survive the session. And then lots of times what I also encounter is the inexperienced voice user. So they may have played video games, but they haven't spent a lot of time in the voice booth. But as we seek to find more diverse actors from more diverse populations, sometimes, the voice director needs to know how to coach and teach that actor to find those extremes, even though they've never done them before. And then there are some special voice situations. I've worked with a number of transgendered actors who, are on testosterone, and those things affect the voice. And so, really understanding how the voice works is super important. And just keep that in mind. Who are you working with as you go through the session? So post-session recovery. This was proven in a study, 16:4 ratio. So that's 16 minutes of vocal rest at the end of a session. That means silence, not just talking quietly. It means no whispering, 60 minutes of vocal rest, and then 4 minutes of gentle humming. And then you just repeat that and continue to hydrate. That's proven to actually help you recover faster than complete silence or just ignoring it and not having any rest at all. So, whew, that was a lot. We covered a lot there, drinking through the fire hose, as they say. Why vocal health is important, casting for those extreme VO sessions, planning those sessions, writing extreme scripts, and some in-session tips, as well as directing tips. So, I hope that you also hear from this as well that there's a reason why many AAA games hire voice directors because they have this kind of experience. But if you have questions or if there's a way that I can help you out, if you're about to go into a session and you have questions about what we covered today, reach out. You can find me at www.vocalcombat.com or you can reach out to me on my socials at Darcy Smith Voice.